Hello warriors, Bebe here and welcome to the corner. Okay? Yes, we have rebranded this section. We're calling it the corner now because clearly I don't know how to do story times, apparently. So we've just decided to call this thing the corner, which is basically where we get deeper into my life. I share a little bit more about, how I've come to be, some of the ways in which my mind works. And yeah, just I guess break things down a little more for you guys because like I said, it really is like this information that we're sharing on this channel, it has to be useful, it has to be practical for the people. So aside from the things that we're doing on the Warrior Enclave where we speak in higher concepts and we get into the research and things like that, this corner, this section on our channel really is to banter, is to open up my life. So come along with me. Oh yeah, before I go, actually, Oh yeah, I forgot to mention. So today's topic is interesting. And the reason why I say that is, I'm sure, I'm sure a lot of us can relate with this, being a daddy's girl. And I'm sure it seems a little alarmist to speak about how being a daddy's girl almost killed me. But by the time you finish dissecting your life, there are certain truths that will come out, as uncomfortable as it may be, as scary as it might seem, as exposing as it might feel. It's better than lying to oneself. And so in this video, I hope to break down even further what I mean when I, of course, say this topic right here on this video. So yeah, let's get into it, guys. Okay, so as you guys know, we've started incorporating Toro as the, person asking questions just to keep me on track and to help guide this section even better. So she's here. Toro, say hi to the people, please.
Hi, warriors. Toro here, off camera, facilitating the conversation, extracting the tea, getting to the juice, the juiciest bits.
All right. So let's get into it.
Okay, so first thing I'll ask is, why do you say you identify as a daddy's girl, and what is that identity to you, or what was that identity to you?
Daddy's girl. I think for baseline, I would say you're a daddy's girl if you have or if you've had a great relationship with your dad. Automatically, that's just like baseline. That's where you're coming from. So, for me in particular, I'll say, I was a daddy's girl because like growing up, I loved everything about my dad. I was very enamored by him. I preferred him over my mom. It was always such a great, once my dad comes home like this, I just know that peace. I'm happy. I am elated, so I really gravitated more towards my dad. Again, being a middle child, sometimes you can feel a little forgotten by everybody. So, but for whatever reason, I felt like my dad saw me and I also felt very safe with my dad. So I drew closer to my dad. I was the kind of child that asked a lot of questions, and while my mom didn't have the patience with me, with my dad, it didn't matter the number of questions I asked, how many times I asked it, whether I asked it like this or I asked it like that. He would always answer my questions and we'll just have long, elaborate talks on any and everything. He seemed very knowledgeable to me. There is no question under the sun that I asked that he didn't have an answer to. We had special moments. I remember the first time he introduced me to the internet and showed me what the internet was, put me on his lap. I couldn't believe, my dad just exposed me to so much, and I just have very clear moments over the course of my life where it was just me and my dad. My other siblings weren't necessarily involved. So for me, I grew a pretty close relationship with my dad. In fact, for those of you that went to school with me, you will know that it was always me and my dad. Like visitings, because I went to boarding school, is my dad that used to come. He used to drive himself personally, from Lagos all the way to Kwara State. He used to come visit me. He used to come pick me up. He would drop me off too sometimes. Like, so and you can imagine those long drives, Lagos to Kwara State, so much conversation. There was just so much. Like, I certainly, I feel like I had so much time with him that I'm not even sure my other siblings even had. Not even because of anything in particular, but just the way our lives were set up. I think my younger sister had gone to a different school, or, my older sisters, my mom was more present then doing all of that. So by the time it came to my turn, I think my mom's job, so she wasn't able to do it as much. So my dad now took that over. So because of those kinds of circumstances, I had a lot of time with my dad. And for the most part, those times were great times. And I cherished them. And he painted a picture to me about what I believed my dad was. And it was a glowing, sparkling picture. And it drew me even closer to him. So I know I've spent a lot of time describing, but I feel like for as long as I could remember, I had a great relationship with my dad. I enjoyed it completely. And I would say it's what kind of set the groundwork for how I believed men to be in my life. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a very interesting description. I don't know. I think like at least in your case specifically in our like family dynamics, I think like even like right from when you were really young, even like a baby, like even your nickname Bebe was like her daddy's babe. Like there was always that attachment, yeah, to him. So
so her daddy's babe, I think it stands for her daddy's baby. So that's how
her daddy's baby.
Yeah. So baby. Yeah, her daddy's, so Bebe basically means baby, and the full thing was her daddy's baby. Or her daddy's baby.
Like it sounds sing song because that's exactly how we would say it's her daddy's babe.
So it was basically my dad's baby.
Her daddy's babe.
So that's that's to tell you.
Yeah, exactly, her daddy's babe. Oh my god.
I tell you how deep that daddy's girl thing was. I was her daddy's baby. That's the essence of my name. The baby that you guys hear now, that is the name.
Right. So I guess some of this revelation might have happened like offline, but it seems like there was a way you perceived him through a veil, and then kind of like a parting of a veil, and then a more fuller sort of like understanding. So I think you've touched on it a little bit, but like, how did you really perceive your father, our dad, pre-veil parting?
So prior to, I'll say, my eyes kind of opening up, and
that's just from you growing up, becoming an adult, learning through life, seeing things, knowing things.
Exactly. So prior to all of that, my dad was like, he could do no wrong. I thought he was the most intelligent. I thought he was the wisest person. I thought he was the greatest human being. I felt like he was the most generous. He was the most loving. Like all the superlatives, if you will.
So like I'm picking up like idolization and a bit of hero worship.
Oh yeah, I idolized my dad fully. Yeah, I did. And for the most part, my dad was a pretty successful guy, did really well for himself, had a great group of friends, lived a great life. So to me, it was a worthy kind of idolatry, if you will. I hadn't for the longest time seen any reason to doubt how great my dad was to me.
So you had this image then, this certain attachment / a certain way that you identified with him. Mm-hmm. So when you say like scales fell from your eyes, what then did you like notice, observe, or acknowledge, grapple with, come to terms with?
Um, you know how like there's some things that only make sense in retrospect. So I kept on growing up, you know, things were happening all around me. I'll say within my parents' marriage, within our household. And I just kept on bumbling along through life, continuing on with my rose colored glasses, right? But it still doesn't mean I wasn't taking notice of certain things. So for those of you who've listened to the Authenticity Warrior podcast, you know, I mentioned about my brother, and just put it on here. My brother is, I'll say he's my half brother. Yeah, half brother, right? Not step, half brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's my half brother because my mom didn't give birth to my brother. Now that is an aspect, that is a truth that nearly broke our family apart. I still don't know how my parents weathered that storm, but there's that. So he's number five of he's number five of all five of us. So four girls and then one boy. So all the gidigbo of all of that was happening all around me, but I was too young to truly make sense of what that kind of thing really meant. You know, especially from a woman's perspective. Like I can imagine, you know, probably the betrayal, the hurt, the whatever that my mom may have felt, right? So I was too young. To me, my brother was like a bright, shiny object. I was like, yay. He was like a cute teddy bear. It was like, yes, you know, more toys, or, you know, like for me, I didn't see what the whole big deal was all about, if I'm being honest. So I was just happy to have a new sibling to play with. He was very, very cute. He looked just like my dad. So for me, I was happy to just move on with what that meant. Like it didn't really matter to me. So, and I guess in my mind, in my forgiving mind or whatever, I just figured, I mean, I guess I had understood that, oh, maybe daddy made a mistake or whatever. But if anything, it even humanized him more. It didn't make me hate him. It didn't make me feel like, oh, he was this bad, horrible person. It just felt like, oh, he's a human being. Human beings make mistakes. And I remember feeling like, or almost it being communicated as if this is the one and only mistake he has ever made, if you get what I mean. And that was sufficient for me, and I continued moving on with life. So it wasn't until I became a young adult where things that happened when I was much younger, and then things that also I had now with my grown eyes began to clock for myself, started to make more sense. So without, you know, can you guys remember that video that was like, oh, Buhari has been a bad boy? Mama, my daddy has been a bad boy. Oh God, guys, no. Yeah. So it was in my early adulthood that my eye opened to all of that. And as a daddy's girl, I would say it is one of the biggest betrayals I had ever felt. It was very hurtful for me. Just clocking all the bullshit by this point in time, realizing that, you know, I'm not even sure I know how to explain this, but you know, all that whole, when we say men are scum on this channel, I would say that is when I began to understand that when I'm saying men are scum, I'm also including my daddy inside. But at that point in time, I still wasn't saying it with my full chest. So that is where my blind spot as a daddy's girl was, because I really love my dad. Like, I just want to make that very, very clear. But even though I was observing the things I was observing, I still could not with my full chest and my full mouth call things out and be like, this is wrong. I just know that it didn't feel good to me. I didn't like how I felt. I felt very betrayed by some of the things that were happening. but I couldn't call things out because of just how much I had idolized my dad. I couldn't bring myself to bring him down myself from that pedestal that I had put him on. So I'm not sure if I answered the question, but I think
you did, but I think much as you're speaking specifically about you as a girl and your relationship with your father, I think that this is what you're describing is a dynamic that exists for all children, boys and girls. I think that we all start out as daddy's girls and boys. I think we all start out as as mummy's girls and boys, because like you think about it, like your survival as a child actually depends on the relationship that you have with your parents and how, the way you adjust yourself to relate with them so that your needs will be met, so that your needs can be met. So like, every child is born with that wiring to have this child's unconditional love for their caregivers, regardless of who they are. So that idolization, that pedestalization, that expectation that you have of them is a universal thing. I think, as well as the unveiling, so to speak, or to coming to grips with their humanity and humanizing them. That process of the humanization of your parents, it's work on yourself too, because it's like, I mean, you're expecting perfection of them, or you swallow whatever it is that they serve you as perfection. Because like there is also, I mean, there's just really no way to describe it, because when you think about the psyche of a child, there is definitely grooming involved there as well. So with the way a parent relates with a child, with the way, they correct a child or correct themselves around a child, we're all human, we make mistakes. How do they come around from that? So you have these kind of elements that you find with any relationship, really, with parent-children relationships, and then you obviously have to factor in again a power dynamic, and somebody hopefully being the adult in the room. But the thing is that a lot of our parents are wounded children themselves. So sometimes the aspect of them that you're relating with, because you see these things, you see it all the time. What I'm just trying to say is that there's a lot of layers, there's a lot of factors, a lot of perspectives, and you really have to give these things like a holistic 360 view, not just a hindsight view of things. So I guess the next thing that I'll ask you, it kind of links into this, is it seems that there is this daddy's girl to patriarchy princess pipeline. And what I'll say, a factor that ties in with your eye opening, there's only so much your eye will even open, having been a daddy's girl. When you get into your adulthood, there's some things that you will have to go in there and pair with a man and see what your mother saw sometimes before even more unveiling happens for you as to what you were conditioned to idolize. So how was that experience for you? I mean, religion is also something that plays into this whole patriarchy princesshood, but how did your relationship with your father lead you to become, now in hindsight, a self-identified ex-patriarchy princess? I don't know if that question...
the question is heavy. That's why I'm pausing, actually, because it's heavy. I honestly, I don't know how to even frame it, where to start from. Like, it's heavy. What I can say is this, especially the pipeline, starting from the pipeline. When you are a daddy's girl, there is a sense of doe-eyedness, I think, a false sense of safety you have around men that you're not supposed to you're not supposed to have. Like, you're not supposed to have that.
And this is based on the reality of things.
Yeah, this is just based on the reality of just the lot in life for women in general. when you are a daddy's girl, you buy into a false sense of safety that actually doesn't exist for you as a woman. Period. There's no how you want to do it. I don't care who has a problem with it. I don't care who wants to feel like this is some man hating. I am sorry. The number one killer of women is men. That is just a simple fact. So, and whether or not it gets even to the point of, being killed by, a man or whatever, but just in the myriad of ways in which men harm women in this world, being a daddy's girl, it creates a false sense of safety that then looks very, very obtuse. Like in the face of the issues,
the danger,
in the face of the dangers that are actually surrounding you as a woman in this world, being a daddy's girl closes your eyes to it. It doesn't make you any less a target. It doesn't make you any more safe. It just makes you naive to what is actually around you. When I think of the number of times I was actually in danger and I didn't even know it, just simply because of the way I had just, my patriarchy princesshood, no. So that's what I will say being a daddy's girl does, and that's the pipeline. You give men all this credit. You really, really look at them like you're equal.
Buy into.
Now, I'm not even saying it in a sense of, maybe I think one gender is better than the other. Not even that. Like, I mean, in terms of even the way you think, your empathy, the way you're able to look at things through this world. A lot of men actually, they don't look at the world the way you look at the world as a woman. And the sooner you can come to terms with that truth, the better you will be. So you wrongly assume that men operate through this world in the way that you do because of how much you've humanized them in your eyes because of how close you were with your dad. And so you actually forget that you do have to be careful out here in these streets. You have to be careful out here in this world. So that's what the danger is.
I think something you're trying to highlight here is, for me, and I'll call it the grooming aspect, which is where you buy into your own oppression. You are essentially bought into it. So when you say you humanize men, it's not that they are humans. They are human beings. But what you end up humanizing is the aspects of men that are dangerous to you. So you humanize sadism. You humanize predatory behavior. You're able to, you feel it's a false immunity. That contributes to your overall sense of safety, your overall, your sensory alarm bells that should be going off.
It's for me, I feel like the number of times that men will do some weird ass shit in this world, and some way, somehow, we still find a way to blame the woman. That is what being a daddy's girl does to you, actually. That it doesn't matter what a man does in this world. You still cannot find it within yourself to call them out, to hold them accountable. It is easier to align with the woman-hating aspect of them and find a way to blame the woman that, had she not worn that dress, had she not gone out at night. Do you get what I mean?
And what you're highlighting is essentially the result of that pipeline, which is, as a woman, your internalized misogyny. And that is really what is a danger to you, because you don't identify in this world as the reality as a woman/femme and the entire reality that entails for you as you exist, as you navigate. And so the tunnel vision that you have, the blind spot, like you said, the rose colored glasses, all the red flags are just looking like flags. You're just laddie-dying through life, thinking that perhaps you're different or
Mm-hmm.
something. I don't know. Either way, you have internalized the hatred of women, and that will materialize. That affects you materially, period, and it will show up in different ways.
Exactly. And to now segue into the question you asked, where there are certain things that will only come out when you are now partnered up with somebody. I mentioned I was such a daddy's girl. I was his golden child, like, and I'm saying this because I know that my siblings, we don't all have the same picture of my dad. My sister here that is attempting to hold space for me, in my head, I'm just like, I hope she's not even getting irritated and just just wanting to fling this mic, because for her, she has a completely different understanding of who my dad is, and that is something that was revealed to her decades ago, as someone who was his scapegoat. So we have completely different experiences of my dad. That for someone who was a scapegoat, she was inoculated. This whole man has come. She understood this thing. Latin from time she knew this thing. Whereas for someone like me, who was a daddy's girl, it wasn't until I entered into partnership with somebody and I saw, as we always say, shege and then bastard together. That is when I now knew that, oh my God, hey, I've made a goddamn mistake here. That is when the things I was enduring in my marriage, I was just putting two and two together that, hey, my mom, like the issues that my mother was contending with, that I then began to contend with. In fact, my own saving grace in what even actually delivered me from that terrible abusive marriage that I was in was the problems I now went to not even go and see were even worse than her own. That is what now made me, as a frog, jump out of the boiling pot that I was in. Because I'm like, even my daddy did not do this. even my daddy did not do up to this.
And many a woman's eyes do not open to the reality of simply what men are in a patriarchal world and how they're socialized and raised to be, and truly just what they really are in reality and how they affect you. A lot of girls will not catch that. They will have to chop more than what their daddy is.
The reason why they don't catch it is because some of these men that they now partnered up with, maybe they were the right vibration with their dad. So they're able to tolerate it because we already groomed to exist in that kind of toxic environment. So for some women, they are lucky enough to be partnered up with a man that maybe is not as toxic as their dad, or he's just the level of toxicity is similar, so the women can still bear it. But some of us are unlucky, we were the golden child, Abby. We'll now go and marry somebody that will make us their personal scapegoat. That is when you will now see that, no, this one is bad. I'm telling you. So for me, much of the wrestling, much of the scales falling off from my eyes, I'll say yes, growing up, I didn't really see. In my early adulthood, I began to see, but I couldn't admit to myself that, no. I was still wrestling with the truth. By the time I got married, by the time I was enduring what I was enduring, as much as, yes, I have to call the person I married out for his bullshit and everything he put me through, it couldn't end there. I couldn't stop there. I now had to be taking a good look at the men around me, my daddy, my uncles, my brother, and see how before, where I was the patriarchy princess, I could have excused their behavior, made excuses, covered it up. You get what I'm saying? Now I was called, I could not close my eyes to everything that I was now noticing around me. And this is where I now got to the point of actually wrestling with how the way I had glorified my dad
set you up,
made me choose a partner that operated like him, that was similar to him, similarly so. So I felt like, I could hack it because I had hacked my dad. I knew what I could do to put my dad in a good mood, let the money flow. Girls, especially girls, children in general, but girls with their dads, they know what to do to get the juice from their daddy. I felt I knew it. So even when my ex was displaying his problematic kidney, I felt like, I know how to handle this one now. I know what I'll do. I know how I'll bend him. I know how I'll do. Hey, it wasn't until when I saw that, there's no tool I did not deploy. This one and his coconut head, no. I knew that I was in a deeper problem than I just knew I was in problem. So I'm saying all of this to say, I forget the point I was trying to make. The point I was trying to make is that, what was the point? The point I was trying to make is that, look, being partnered up with somebody that was now infinitely worse than my dad is what gave me the strength to get out. But because I had already been groomed to tolerate a certain level of toxicity already, it is what kept me in that relationship longer than I should have been. It is what slacked me even more. I did not even notice as I was being more and more slack with the toxicity, because I had already been groomed to tolerate quite a bit, actually. To the point where in my head, for me, the highest bar of the toxicity was, let this man not bring a child home to me. Do you get what I mean? That because that particular thing had not even happened, all the other terrible things, the physical abuse, the sexual abuse, the emotional abuse, the financial abuse, I could not even properly even call those ones out, because to me, I had still been looking at that one up there as, that is the ultimate. Do you get what I mean, guys? So being a daddy's girl, especially if your dad is toxic, he has not been the best husband to your mom. And like we already said on this channel, if you're not a good husband, you can't be a good father. It doesn't matter, because some of you don't even realize the role you play as daddy's girls. Some of you don't even realize that your role as daddy's girl, he's actually using you to punish your mom. All the love and affection that he's supposed to be showing to your mom, he's purposely withholding it and pouring it on you. He's lavishing it on you because he's trying to. Do you get some men are sadistic like that? You don't even know. Let me not even get into this whole daddy's girl thing, because if your eyes are truly open, you will see how dastardly it is. Some of you have seen, what's his face? I'm not going to say his name so that they don't hold our channel, but that guy that used to date Nicki Minaj? That one that has to do with a jungle now. His name has to do with a bit of a jungle. If you see the nonsense he's doing, the lavishing of the daughter just to spite the mom. Do you understand what I mean? So, I don't joke with this thing, because, I don't want to even talk too much. I feel like I'm talking too much. Please, what's the next question?
No, you're saying what needs to be said. One thing that I want to touch on here, another thing that contributes to women internalizing misogyny, the idolization of their fathers, it comes, there's the contribution women make to that condition is their silence. So in our case, our mother was not only silent, but overly ambitious in terms of covering up, in terms of looking, still being dignified and stately in the face of, in the depth of toxicity, like you said. So that will contribute to your dissonance, the silence of the women and the community around you. And that's something that just, again, it just deters you and prevents you and takes you longer for you to see your father as a man in a man's world, because honestly, that's just really, really what it boils down to. The attention that you get from your father, the shining light, it's a form of grooming. It grooms you to then not see his place in a man's world and the way he has been a man in a man's world.
If I have to, again, it's part of the dangers of being a patriarchy princess. When you now stay there and uphold the toxicity, together with the man, especially if you're now married, you now continue a generational curse where your children grow up to imbibe those same values, especially if you're the kind of patriarchy princess now that would work overtime covering things up. My mom, for example, things were always swept under the carpet. Like the way things were happening in that house, but we were never spoken to, we were never addressed. I know that there are some friends of mine that they say that their moms, when things happen, their moms will call them to the side. Would tell them that, would give them the messaging that they needed to learn so that their eyes were opened. This is really how men can be in this world, right? But when you're not the kind of patriarchy princess that you can't even do that, then you set your daughters up.
Or you actively close their eyes even when they're like, hey,
exactly.
Something is looking weird, and then you shut that down. No. Your father loves you.
Yeah. I have to admit that because my mom is like, I love my mom so much, but she's one of those people that she's not confrontational. She doesn't like negative emotion. She loves everything to be positive. So even saying, like, calling names, like abusing people, like that was not allowed in our house. So shut up, what? So my mom, she loved everything nice and rosy, smelling great, looking great. So even when you want to even express a negative emotion, you want to feel sad, you want to cry, you want to feel angry, my mom wouldn't even let you feel that. It's you snap out of it, When you want to call things out, it's to shut it down. Like, no, it's like shut down that conversation, shut down that emotion.
Your observations are not affirmed.
Exactly. So, and that gaslights you even more to keep feeling like, oh, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I'm the one that you get. So you grow up just splitting yourself in two, just living in cognitive dissonance, just seeing toxicity all around you, but just pretending like you can't see it. Do you get what I mean?
Or that's seeing what it happens. For what it's not. Seeing
exactly.
It for positive.
Yeah, exactly. Putting a positive spin on everything. There are some things that are really just that shit. There are things that are really just that bad. But then as a patriarchy princess, you learn to put a positive spin on all this bad behavior from men. At least it's not like my own, like, you get to the, and that's why, when I see a lot of women that like to do campfire conversation, you should be exchanging war stories so that you can confirm that, at least your own husband is not as bad as that other husband. Do you get what I mean? So, like, for me, I feel like I'm speaking in parables. I just feel like this kind of video, this kind of messaging, only those who get it, get it. I don't think I can explain any further than this, honestly.
Something that is so real and also yet so abstract at the same time, and also just like fish in water because we're just submerged in it. It's the way of things. So it's one can't even seem crazy talking about it.
Every time I'm having this conversation, I always feel like, those prophets wearing their raggedy clothes, holding a sign, the world is ending, the world is ending.
The desert.
And you look mad. That is how I always feel I look to people, honestly.
Yeah. Okay, so do you have any closing comments for our audience, our warriors on this topic?
Closing comments. Again, I feel like I've said quite a bit in this video, most of which might go over a lot of people's heads. But here's just what I will say. The one thing that did me in when I was in the abusive relationship that I was in was burying my head in the sand. It was not connecting the dots. It was not investigating the discomfort I was feeling. Familiar emotions that I felt, I'd felt this before and I didn't like how I felt then. I'm feeling it again now. The best thing you can do for yourself is to remain inquisitive. Continue to investigate every single thing that makes you feel uncomfortable, that makes you feel unsettled, that makes you feel anxious. When you do that, you open yourself up to the possibility of receiving answers to your questions. And hopefully that would actually guide you to the salvation that you desire. But if you try and run away from what your gut, what your spirit already knows is true, you are only going to prolong your suffering, prolong your pain, prolong your hurt in whatever it is you are enduring. So remain inquisitive, keep your eyes open, and keep asking questions. And the moment you have the answers that you need, act. Don't wait a second longer. Act immediately. Now, for me, because of how I always say, I feel like my third eye is wide open. There's a way in which I understand men now in this world that I am uncomfortable with the idea of marriage, period. Now, that is me. I'm not going to now sit here on this channel and advocate the same for any other human being. But the one thing that I do say, if you are married, if you do desire to be married, you have to negotiate the terms of this institution in a way that favors you completely. Because everything in this world is going to keep tearing things down against you. Everything in this world is going to keep rigging this marriage business against you. So you have to show up to that institution, eyes wide open, with your full chest, your full mouth, your full everything, ready to ensure that this institution will pay you. It will pay you. You are not going to enter this institution and be broken down into a shell of yourself. That is something you have to insist on. So I think those are just the final words that I would leave. So once again, thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for coming to the corner to hear what I have to say. And thank you as well to my sister for anchoring this segment so excellently well. And, we'll see you guys on the next one. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, warriors.